Joining us now to discuss this in depth is University of Utah law professor Amos Guiora. He is a Middle East expert. He's a retired lieutenant colonel of the Israeli Defense Forces and the author of numerous books and articles on counterterrorism and homeland security. Professor Guiora, what were your first thoughts and emotions when you heard about today's attack?
Speaking frankly, first of all, thank you for having me. I was not surprised. I think that it was clear that the Taliban and/or ISIS would undertake any measures necessary to make the last few days of the American presence as difficult as possible. From their perspective, 12 service members killed is successful. Do I think it's the end of it? No, not at all. And I think from President Biden's perspective and the U.S. military, I think they're absolutely right in staying on course and saying that they will leave on August 31st as planned. No way should Biden and team use this terrible attack as justification for staying, which is, I think, perhaps what the Taliban would want, but I don't think would serve American interests whatsoever.
Now, an ISIS group is taking credit for today's attack, and as I understand, a particularly violent branch of ISIS that we're calling ISIS-K. What do you know about these people, and what was their intent with today's attack?
I think we have to look at it from two different perspectives. One, perhaps some kind of an inter or intra conflict between the Taliban and ISIS, who's more powerful, dominant, effective in Afghanistan. And two, to clearly send a message to the United States that American soldiers are vulnerable, which only heightens the need to leave as soon as possible. And Biden said August 31st it is. What the U.S. will do in retaliation and reaction, first of all, we're going to have to be really clear as to who was responsible for it. You can't just, aim wildly. Is it clear that it was ISIS-K, or is it ISIS-K who claims responsibility? Not the same thing. Again, what will happen in Afghanistan after the U.S. leaves is a different issue. But I think, again, from the American perspective, whether it was ISIS-K or ISIS this or Taliban that, what's essential is for the U.S. to get out as quickly as possible.
Now, you mentioned the timing of this coming just 5 days before that deadline to pull all U.S. troops out of that country. What happens between now and next Tuesday?
That is an excellent question. So perhaps by analogy, a number of years ago, while serving in the Israel Defense Forces, Israel made the decision to leave Lebanon. And the question is what happens in the interim between decision to implementation. And there's always concern about attacks like this, which is why, as I said earlier, I don't think anybody really should be surprised that this attack came forward. I would like to think that intelligence gathering is 24/7 to try to gather information about a potential additional attack. Would it surprise me that between now and the 31st there would be another attack or an attempted attack? Not in the least. Because again, the Taliban and the ISIS are thinking about September 1st and their need to demonstrate power within Afghanistan. The best way to do so, I apologize for the way this sounds, is to kill as many Americans as possible. Again, apologizing for the way that sounds.
Well, after next Tuesday, when American forces are out, if they do get out, what is the future of this country? Because 32 million people will remain in Afghanistan under this rule of the Taliban or ISIS, or a struggle between the two.
Excellent question. First of all, I'm not really sure we can use the word country or traditional nation state when talking about Afghanistan. It's a conglomeration of different tribal lords, warlords, yes, under the control of the Taliban, which means that people who are affiliated with the United States, not only people who collaborate with the U.S., but obviously women, are at extraordinary risk. But the U.S. is going to have to make a terrible decision whether or not we are going to have a vested interest in the fate of those who worked with us. And from a really, again, I apologize for the way this sounds, from a really cold Machiavellian perspective, we're going to have to say that's not an American interest. There are those who are going to say, humanitarianism and so on. There will be obviously political fallout in terms of President Biden. But I think from a really narrow American perspective, what happens in Afghanistan and what the Taliban do will be of interest, some interest in the United States. It will be used politically. But I think from a geopolitical perspective, I'm hard-pressed to identify Afghanistan, as I understand it today, as being significant from an American geopolitical perspective. It's been used. It has been important. Is it important moving forward? I'm skeptical.
University of Utah law professor and Middle East expert, Professor Amos Guiora, joining us today. Thank you very much for your time and for your insight.
Thank you so much for having me.